Hello, everyone. My name's Chris. I'm here with Jules, and we're excited to get into episode 2 of Awakening into Freedom. And say hi, Jules.
Hello, how are you?
So, today we're going to look at the topic of 4 pillars of wisdom, and we're just going to run through them: vision, connection, receptivity, creativity. So, we're looking forward to exploring that a bit today. So thanks for coming back to our podcast. And yeah, we got some interesting things to dive into today. So Jules, do you want to tell us where this 4 pillars of wisdom comes from?
Aaron Soul has an interesting book called Empath to Mystic, and it's my good fortune to track you down, Chris, as you've already nominated, you're a musician, and to get some music lessons and start on a journey of working out how to move through some of the blocks that we have in ourselves to step into new endeavours. So I feel very appreciative that I've met you because it seems to me this is exactly... I was very curious to know how you've moved and listening to you, how you've moved through to your place of the creativity you do now. So interesting.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I'm happy to be on the journey with you. And maybe we'll start with diving into these pillars of wisdom, and obviously one of them is creativity, and we've also got vision, connection, receptivity. Is there anywhere you feel like we could start?
Well, I think the biggest problem we have today is a lot of people, there's so many distractions, so many like Netflix, phones. And so I think everything gets watered down, or, people aren't. And I listened to your opening podcast and I just loved it. I was mesmerised by it because, you don't realise that we were using the word before, you're disassociating from life, and living a life in a really, and I think you said it earlier, an authentic way. And I think there's a beautiful saying, you don't know what you don't know. But I know we've had this conversation, and it's like we're still really yearning for something really deep. There's a yearning in us that we want something else. Is this all it is? And I love how you speak because you're really, really dropping into a really deep place of connection with soul. I hear you say that all the time. So I guess I'd love to ask you a couple of questions is, really, with your music, how you got started.
I listened to the Beatles, like a lot of people did. My parents had some Beatles records. I listened to the Beach Boys. And I remember that brought me into my body. And I know I was talking about bringing myself into my body. And you mentioned the word dissociated, so I'd like to just touch on that. I've had some experiences in my life that have created dissociation at points in my life, and that's probably a topic for another episode, but just briefly, it's been a journey to come back into my body and to discover, a deeper part of my authenticity, a deeper part of my truth, and also just get clearer on, where I am and where I want to go. And it's like the murkiness has cleared with the work I've done, and music has been part of that work, and yeah, it did all start just by listening to some of my favorite bands. I'm definitely an old soul, so I love a lot of the 60s stuff, the 70s, the 80s, and I still love a lot of that music, and even when I'm writing songs, or learning songs, I'm taking a lot of influence from you know, even if it's conscious or unconscious, you know, I'm taking a lot of influence from some of those bands, and yeah, I do think it was a really explosive time in music, and obviously the Beatles were like the epitome of that, and but we could do a whole episode on the Beatles, but we'll keep moving. So yeah, so that's how I got started, and then, you know, so definitely started listening to some records with my parents, and then, you know, eventually I started singing along, and then I got a guitar in high school, and I really sort of became fascinated with that as well. So and I've just become more, I think, immersed in music as I've gone along. Yeah.
And just for those that are listening, I have to say that where we are right now is the great fortune that Chris is delivering some fabulous sound meditations, and I've worked as a therapist, and I've done a lot of this work, but where you go is very, very, needs to be said, goes very deep, and it hits the mark for a lot of people that are doing this work with you now. So that really is the result of all the work you've done up to now. So if we're starting from there and working back, it's so obvious to me that you've done a lot of work. You know what it is to drop in. We talk a lot about the soul and dropping in very deeply. So you are a true empath. Yeah.
I think so.
Absolutely. So that when you are that, there's a certain degree of protection has to go in, because we can't walk around the whole world with this open sensing feeling, because there's too much coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my journey, it has become, I've become more conscious or aware of, like, where is my energy at, and what can I take on at the moment energetically, or where does my energy want to go, and that will be something I'll factor into my decision making, in terms of some days or some weeks, you know, I need a lot of social interaction, or other weeks I need more solitude or creative time. And yeah, it is really about it's about paying attention, isn't it, to our inner experience, and not wanting to override, you know, what we're needing, and it is about, yeah, honouring what we're needing, and being real with ourselves, so that we can then be real with others, and yeah. So that's a bit of background, and
A little bit, but I want to go a little bit further if I can. I'd love to, because you know I'm a big fan of Jung.
Sure.
I love him to bits. But when I listen to you and I hear where you've gone, it's a similar path, because he had to go down deep inside himself. But we've had previous conversations about going to school and the school systems, and whether you've got to knuckle down and learn, and the education system. And you've also gone on to get a degree in something, another field. So, and then you've decided engineering wasn't going to be your fit. So it's like you've made a really big decision. Some part of you went, no, there's this deeper calling. So if we're going to come into these 4 pillars and talk about them, then the first one really is you've got to have a vision. And how do you stand aside from all that society's putting, because it's putting something on you, isn't it? Education, parental rules, and we need a lot of that. We need that there, but to follow that deeper calling you're talking about. And Jung, and I want to really slip this quote in, Jung says, we walk in shoes too small for ourselves. And I've felt when I've been listening to you, you knew there was something bigger for you to step into. But it takes a lot of courage.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the question and the thoughts, and vision is a good place to start, and I can sort of relate to what you've shared also, which is, I feel like even if a deeper part of me had some awareness of my vision when I was younger, I wasn't listening to it loudly enough, and I was sort of, I could say I wasn't taking myself seriously enough. I was perhaps following the ideas of other people too much, and that led me down, into the corporate world, and this isn't any sort of. I think what I want to preface this by is that I'm only referring to my own journey, and when I say the corporate world wasn't really suitable for me, I'm not suggesting that that's the case for everyone, but for me it wasn't really a lifestyle or a direction that was going to bring me good bring me the things that I really wanted, and I remember I think if I'll keep referring to the body, I'm sure, but I remember both my mind and body started to protest against the path I was taking. So I started to get sick. I started to just I could feel that something's a bit off here, and even in my sort of mid to late 20s, I was starting to realize I don't think engineering is the right path for me, and because at that age, the fact that I was it was starting to take a toll on me, and I guess I'm glad I did listen and start to shift direction. And music was something that was always exciting to me, and I think I just, at that point, I think since that point in time, which was over 10 years ago, I've really needed to build my self-belief, because I think when you go down the creative path, it will test you. It's very rewarding but scary as well, and very uncertain. And I think I've gone from that world of the corporate world of kind of valuing or thinking that I valued security, thinking I valued having a very regimented routine and the the consistency of having a weekly salary and all those things. But it wasn't really the life for me. It was a life that I thought, if I'm really honest, I just wasn't listening to myself clearly enough, and that's been the journey. Is like how do I get to know myself better, and music is one vehicle that helps me get to know myself, and of course there's been other therapeutic kind of practices as well that I've been able to explore with some of the. I've had some amazing mentors in my life and teachers, and I'm very blessed to have connected with I guess the right people at the right time, and I know there's often been times when I am in a challenging place, and I think it's also having that realization that, like, it's okay to reach out. It's okay to not know everything, and in trust in someone else, and when I say in trust in someone else, I mean when I do start to listen more deeply and pay attention to what I really need or what I really want, I will, I've had the good fortune of it, that process has pointed me in a direction where I'm like, I feel like this person I'm meeting has something of value, or something that resonates with me, and I'm really intrigued, and I really think really think we can go somewhere with that that's good. So yeah, I've learned a lot since that point in time, and yeah, I mean, if I had to sum it up, it's really brought me closer to myself and my true values and my true mission. Yeah.
And what I find fascinating listening to you is if I even quoted from this book we're referring to, it says you will need strength to face challenges, discipline to press on, even when you have disempowering thoughts that want to kill your ambition. And when I listen to you, and I've read this book, and yet when I've sat and listened to you, these words come out of you because it's your lived journey, and I know. That's why I love these topics, because I thought this is actually what you've had to do, to step aside from everything that society was pointing you towards, good career, family, wife, children, whatever the house, whatever that is. But to be a working musician as you are now, you really, there's got to be a lot of thoughts that have come in at times trying to say, I don't know, you've just followed this. Any thoughts coming and trying to, as it said there, kill off this vision that you had, or have you just kept going with it?
Yeah, there's been lots of ups and downs and lots of questioning of where am I going, and there's times when, and there still is times when I don't know exactly where I'm going, but I just, not to sound like a broken record, I keep using the word trust, but I have learned how to trust myself better. And part of that has been from, working through some things in my past as well. Some sort of painful things that have held me back and made me sort of not trust the world or not trust people. So it's been a process of reclaiming trust within myself, and I think what happens as I reclaim trust in myself is I can trust the world more easily. I can trust my path more easily, even if I can't see as far ahead as I think I need to. And if I go back a few years, I would have almost fixated on I need to be able to see what's down the road, otherwise, and I would fixate on it, and it would take me into my mind and rumination, and whereas now it's I know I can't see everything in front of me, but I can see enough that I feel like am I on track, and so it's sort of building that sort of it's tuning into that navigational system that we have, and also realizing that none of us have all the answers in terms of how far down the road we can see. But also it's about it's just about sort of checking in with ourselves on a regular basis. I mean, all the time, checking in with ourselves, being present, and sort of fine tuning our navigation.
You used the word discernment before. I think you use that a lot. But gee, it's one thing to know it in your head, and it's a whole other thing to step forward and actually enact it, though. It's a big, big thing, isn't it? It's really big. So the challenges, if we're looking here, it says overcoming the lack of motivation and fear of failure. Do you have the necessary building blocks? So for you, what were your building blocks? What did you really believe in yourself to do this? Because you're a very accomplished musician, I have to say.
I think thank you. I've worked pretty hard to not just to build the skills, but as you said, to build the belief that they mean something to me, and they can mean something to other people. And I'm not trying to win everyone over with my music. I just notice that sometimes it connects me to people. sometimes I can see that sometimes there's a confidence that comes from being in the moment with music and seeing that, oh, this song that I'm playing and singing is touching someone. I can see it in their face, or it's moving someone. I can see them moving, quite literally. Yeah, so it's very rewarding. I think like live music is kind of its own reward. We still need to get paid, of course. That's another episode in itself. But yeah, and yeah, so I feel like I'm able to meet my needs. I mean, it's there is still ambition to keep growing things, of course, and at the same time, it's like, yeah, I want to appreciate the journey as I go as well, and I know I used to find that not easy to do, because my mind was constantly going 3 steps down the road, and I'd almost miss the moment at times, and like, so I kind of make a point to myself to smell the roses when I can. Once when I do a gig, if I set everything up and turn the power on and it works, then that's the big step. And then picking up the guitar and singing is sometimes the easy part, If there's people in the room and the PA system's working, then that's half the battle. Just making sure that the environment is happening, and then then I can sort of I can start listening to like, what kind of songs do I think are going to work here, and I think I've also gotten I think that's probably something that's helped me a lot, is I think I can read the room fairly well, and I think I've really tried to create more opportunities for myself where I can do that, and again, that comes back to that presence and being present and also being authentic, being like, what's resonating in my soul right now, what song is going to help me voice that, and trusting that. So trust is obviously such a big thing for me, because I keep talking about it, and it's something that's really dropped in for me much more the last few years in particular, and that and I just want to say, like, that when I say it's dropped in the last few years, like, I've been working through a lot of things in my life, and particularly in on a relational level, and that has allowed me to again, sort of deepen into my trust.
This is a bit of a pun because you're a musician, but I find it so easy to tune in to you. But what we have to do is you allow everybody to slow down so they can hear. But I think that's important if you've got people that are listening to this and just thinking this through. It's like, well, I was just coming back to the beginning of what this book's about. It says, like, well, where do people start? And I've heard you say this quite often, is about being curious. What is it in you, in other people, that I know you're trying to convey this, and part of your reason for doing this is people to be curious about, well, what could their own journey be?
Yeah, I think curiosity is really powerful, and it's probably much needed in our world, for us to start with curiosity. I think perhaps where we often get in trouble is we think we need answers immediately, or whether that's answers for ourselves or answers for other people. Whereas if we can be curious, we can, it kind of softens everything straight away. So we're not as defensive if we're curious, because we don't need something immediately. We've acknowledged that we're investigating things. So it softens things, it opens things, and I guess it allows the intelligence or the answers to drop in, at the right time. So it moves us further away from like forcing things, and it moves us more into uncovering things, discovering things, learning things. So I think it helps us grow, it helps us find our way, and it helps us listen to that maybe a part of ourselves that we would otherwise overlook, So it's a very inclusive thing in terms of like we're kind of risking discovering a better way, or that's what I needed, or that's what I want. So it's letting go of control as well. So
wow.
Yeah.
So, because a little bit of my background is understanding a little bit more of the neuroscience, but what you're talking and describing there is amazing, because you're showing us a process where you're moving from your left analytic kind of brain, and the word curious is the right, which is your creative side of the brain. So everything you're describing here is really about that process of moving away from the control, like you said, and moving across, and I guess the term letting go, really. But unless you have conversations like this, or you hear people that are describing, like you are, the process, it's really hard to know how to navigate it. So I'm sure people will appreciate what you're doing. But it has to be said, one of the big things that people will dissociate with today is like Netflix, phones. There's so much social media out there as well, which is so destructive to this process.
Yeah, it is. It's also, there's no easy answer to that as well. I think it's very embedded in our culture. I'm guilty of it too.
But you use the word discernment. You were saying earlier that you do love podcasts, so you're discerning about what you.
That's true. There are certain things that I'm quite happy for myself to consume, and then there's other things that perhaps I consume too much of, and I'm a work in progress as well.
Like us all, yeah. It's really interesting, though. I love it. So that starts with the vision.
Yeah.
And then you've done your own journey, and you said you've had many people that you've mentors along the way that have really helped. And been given a structure, or?
They've helped me listen to something in myself that, or see something in myself that I wasn't aware of, or I wasn't prioritizing, or they've helped me sort of even become aware of like, what does it feel like to feel, I'm going to say the word safety, but create more safety so that I can, I think without safety it's really hard for us to grow. It's really hard to maybe go to some of those places we've mentioned. It's hard to trust. It's hard to be curious with it. Like, if our nervous system is, say, in a dysregulated place. So some of my greatest teachers have helped me notice the dysregulation in my nervous system, and start to explore that, investigate that, and also become more aware of like what I needed on a primal level and on a conscious level, and both of those levels are important, primal and conscious, like we've got to be in the earthiness and the rawness of our physicality and our body and our feelings and our emotions, and we have a consciousness which is the intelligence of how we think and everything we can know, and etc. etc. But it's sort of this dance, or it's this marriage, and if one of them's out of whack or both, we need to sort of bring some restoration. So
this is the connection.
Yeah.
Then this is the second point of the pillar.
I think
really.
So
you've got mentors, but you're actually saying the connection is with your like mind, body, soul.
Yeah, and when we can, so some of my mentors have helped me, and it hasn't happened overnight, bring my nervous system back into a regulated place, and even know the difference between when is it dysregulated and when is it in a place of ease, and being able to notice that, being able to value that, being able to know what factors have played a part in that, both in my past and also, how am I going to see when that's triggered as well, and that all of that helps me make better decisions. It helps me navigate life. So I can't say enough about how important it is, that nervous system awareness, because I mean, that's part of that mind-body-spirit connection, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think if we throw in a little bit more neuroscience, in my area, the polyvagal theory is so big, we realise now that the sympathetic nervous system, when you're on high alert, and the parasympathetic is more when you are relaxed and you're curious, and you can be discerning when you're in that there, but you've described it beautifully, knowing when you're going between the two. And part of this 4 pillars, he says, the challenge then with this connection is to amplify your voice amongst many in your head and overcoming fear and isolation.
Yeah, there's a lot of rawness in that, now that you mention it, because I think being an artist, being a musician, being creative, there are going to be moments of solitude which are serving you, and then there are moments of solitude which perhaps feel more like isolation. And it is sort of, it can be a fine line to know, when to make changes in your life, and I'm still learning about like how much connection do I need and where does that all come from, and and I mean the short answer to that is I need more human connection than ever before, and maybe I've always needed it, but my system has been somewhat disengaged or unaware or numb to that. So I know my journey has been to really re-engage and really become better at again creating opportunity to meet my needs, and I think human connection is just it's become more and more clear to me that for me to live the life I want, it's a lot of that is through human connection. I don't need as much solitude time as I used to. There are still times when I value it, but I definitely thrive around people, and I think that comes from, again, the work on being able to sort of trust myself, be able to find a regulated place in my nervous system, or at least most of the time. I still have my moments, but I've got more resources, more tools to, and they're not just my resources and tools, they are collaborations, they are, as I mentioned, it's the relationships in my life, it's the people in my life, it becomes this collaborative effort in terms of like doing health better, you know, in terms of going where I need to go. It's this collaborative effort. So yeah, I guess that brings the word community up for me, which is like, what
that's
does
the
community...
next, receptivity. I have to say, just looking at you now as you're talking, you have the biggest smile on your face and your eyes are sparkling. So he's come alive talking about this. But the third point then is what you're just moving to now is the receptivity, and it talks about, the ability to trust and receive support from your own authentic voice within and from those around you that are walking the walk, which is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think it's about knowing, like, it's interesting to have people from different walks of life and different strengths in our world, in our community, and it's also interesting to know, like, when I need to meet myself in this place, who can I do that with? And what I mean by that is, like, it's being aware of, I mean, you've said this before about we don't go to the hardware store for milk, so it's learning.
That's not original from me, but that's from somewhere.
But I really love that because it's such a it paints such a picture about it's knowing where to turn and when to turn there, and realizing that we can learn things from anyone and everyone, but sometimes we really need to turn in a certain direction, and again, that comes from our intuition. It comes from following that thread of like, what am I needing at the moment, or what's and that might give me an idea of, like, for some reason I don't even have to fully comprehend, but I feel like I should call this person, or I should send this person a message, or whatever the case is. So I think that does relate to receptivity. It's about knowing when to reach out and where to reach out.
And interesting, because the old model of family, and we can love our families, but if we come back to what I was saying earlier with Jung, and he talks about we walk in shoes too small for ourselves. If I want to keep coming back to the family system that keeps me small and in a pattern, and it's got nothing to do with anything other than I need to grow, so I've got to step outside of things and move forward, and we've got to trust that that's okay. Just move through. So that kind of leads us into the fourth
I think just
pillar
on
too.
that point, I think I'll say, we've all got a journey that our soul is calling us towards, and I think that is a priority, to listen to that. And obviously that may change the relationships in our life. In fact, it will change those relationships, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that we need to be true to ourselves, and we need to face our soul and follow our soul. If we want, I think, the greatest things for ourselves, and to be able to share that with others, of course, because and it can also mean the most, in some ways it's the most challenging place to turn to, because it brings up everything. So when I say greatest life, I mean, it doesn't mean it's easy, but it means that it brings up a lot, and that's going to take us on a journey, isn't it? And we don't know who's coming with us. Like, we don't know who's going to get all of our journey, whether that's some people in our family or some of our friends we've grown up with, or maybe we meet a lot of new people that get us even more. It's going to be different for everyone, and but I think that the key is to if something's bringing us closer to that our soul's calling, I would just say, don't be afraid to keep facing that, and know that even if it is bringing up some confronting things, or it's bringing up a lot of things, you're not alone, and like that is part of the power of the journey you're on as well, is learning how to be with all of that, and also how to keep moving. Yeah.
Whew, big. It's big if you're really working in this way, because it's so easy to think you get your needs met externally to yourself, and that's what I hear you repeatedly talking about here. You're about going into the journey, down in, and it's not really a place that a lot of people go. There's a lot of new age things that are out there. We talk about, we just use, for example, Buddhism, you go straight to spirit, but what you're talking about is going down to soul, which when we've met and talked, I just love this, because there's not a lot of people I can have this conversation with around this, because a lot of people will get their needs met today externally. There's a lot of things to distract, so it's different. This is a whole different journey, really.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, I really love the way you say, going down into the soul, and it's interesting, yeah. It's meeting our needs, and like, obviously, as I've said, I've gotten better at meeting my needs, but there's still things I'm figuring out. There's still things I'm like, I could watch less YouTube and less Netflix, and I know that I distract myself at times too. So I think it's like building a capacity to hold more in that soulful place, and that just takes time, and I have to be patient with myself too, because I slip up regularly, and I fall into old habits or whatever. So it's about being kind to ourselves too, and to each other. We're not trying to fix ourselves or fix anyone else. We're just trying to help ourselves realize things, and the more we can do that for ourselves, perhaps the more we have to offer for others as well.
A little quote here, it says, unless your creative juices, your insights, need to flow freely. And that's the big topic for you tonight, really, isn't it? It's moving into that freedom. Because, and then I'll quote another guy, Bill Plotkin, and he says, he calls it the descent down to the soul is the fruitful darkness. And some people crave that. It's a deeper yearning within themselves. And it's fruitful. It doesn't have to be something that's scary. People often think of that as something scary. Oh, no, I've got to go to the light. But I actually, personally, that's why I find what you do fascinating, because it is a journey down.
We hold a lot of untapped potential, and in the shadows and in the dark, there's so much to be revealed there. It can be uncomfortable because we can't see as clearly, obviously. But the dark, and a good teacher of mine, and I hope I get this roughly correct if I paraphrase something he taught me, like the roots of a tree go underground, you can't see the whole tree, but there's so much value in those roots, and so much nutrients, so much life. So we need to go into our roots too, and be aware of, like, become aware of our blind spots, become aware of maybe the things we're feeling that we don't have an immediate answer for. We get triggered and it's uncomfortable. Like, what does that mean? And if there is something that's potentially painful, can we be with some of that pain? And because it's normal that we would have blocked out certain things. We've been raised in a, like, at least I believe in our Western culture, and there's a lot of good things about Western culture, but there's also limitations, which is, we're in a world where we're very academic focused and performance focused, very outcome focused, and that can mean sometimes being too pragmatic about things to the point where we're pushing away our genuine experiences that are uncomfortable. And if we started doing that from a young age, and a lot of us, if we needed to do it to survive, that's what happens. We get caught up in that survival mechanism, and we've actually blocked out a lot of who we are. So when we start to uncover that and reveal it, it can be uncomfortable, because there's a reason that we didn't want to be with it at the time. So, but it can also be very liberating, as you said, because it's like, oh, I don't want to carry that anger anymore, or that sadness, or that shame. Those emotions are heavy and they hold a lot of energy. Like, I don't want to have to and what will happen is, if we don't deal with them, they'll be governing us in some way from an unconscious place. So
that's the shadow, right?
That's the shadow.
That's the shadow.
Exactly.
What we want to look at. Beautiful. You always. There it is. But what I want to know, Christian, is for someone that's such an empath yourself, this getting up and what I've seen you perform and watch you perform, but how have you overcome, like a lot of people would be great musicians in their lounge rooms or in their bedrooms. That saying, famous, takes us a lot of courage to step up there and expose yourself. What's that like?
Yeah, it's a process, and it will. I think it's also almost confirmation that the path of being a performing artist is right for me, because it does bring up a lot for me. But also all that energy is what fuels the music too. So it's taken me time to see it that way, and to become more conscious of, like, what's going on with me. Why I remember when I started performing music, I would use things like alcohol to just temper my emotions and temper all the feelings, and to give me a false sense of security or comfort. But the reality is that it's quite a visceral experience being a performing artist. It's quite a moving experience, and it can be an emotional journey in itself. And it's about resourcing ourselves and enough to be able to hold that, to be able to be with that, to take that journey. Now, that's been my experience. Now, I can't say what it's like for every performing artist, but I can imagine that we all have some version of that where there's a nervous energy, or there's different things we're going to feel along the way, we want to be able to practice, sort of, firstly know that it's all happening for a reason, and that that there's a lot of passion in it too. There's a lot of passion from the fact that it means a lot. I think, and when it does mean a lot, it's going to bring up more. So it's this kind of, like, you can't, you can't have your cake and eat it too, kind of thing. It's kind of like, if you're really excited about being a musician, it's probably because it's going to mean a lot to you, and because it means a lot to you, it's probably going to bring up a lot of different thoughts and feelings in the process, and it is going to be very revealing and very even at times. I know it's been overwhelming in the past, but it's helped me. It's also been somewhat of an arbiter of truth, so it's brought me further into myself to get to know
I
myself.
wish
and
people could see you
my
right
journey,
now with your
you know.
hands. You're very expressive right now. So you must be in your passion and truth the way you're expressing yourself. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's that performing artist happening. And even the word performance, I know it's an old school word, performing artist, but I think there's different kinds of performers too. Like there's being entertainment value, and there's also times when you're really in the artistic side of things, and maybe there's you're just going somewhere with something, and so I think it's just it is a big world, being a performing artist. I suppose that's the best term at this point. But it does open up a really big world. So it's like be ready for it, but also know that, you know, you're always going to be getting ready for it. But I know it's I know there's a lot of potency in that path for me, and I'm sure there is for others too. And I think, like, don't let that shy you away or scare you away. Like, look at it like, oh, that's an indication that this has some healing for you. You know, this has some healing for you, and this has some power for you that you can transmit through yourself and through and out to others too.
I've had the good fortune of fronting up with you and you to be patient enough with me to give me lessons, and I'm so grateful, because part of my motivation was I was thought of this art critic Hughes that I used to listen to him critique all these different artworks, and I thought, but he doesn't paint himself. So how can you be a critic of something that you don't actually step in and do, you know? So I'm grateful the way you are, because you explain this to me, and it's actually something here when working on a new intention, commit to working consistently over a period of time, and you've said to me before, just the other day, repetition and discipline are what create real changes to the patterns of the brain. And they're almost your words exactly. And that's why I wanted to really do this book, because I hear you, listen to you, and I go, I've heard this in this book. So these are your own words, really. This is what you believe and have come to believe about how to move forward and continue to move forward. And again, in an authentic way, in your truth, these words.
Yeah. So we've gone through vision, we've gone through connection, and I will say we've touched on vision, we've touched on connection, we've touched on, what was the third? Receptivity. And
the last is
and
the actual in the creation, and so really I think for your people who are listening, and I'm pretty grateful to hear your story, Chris. That's why I love sitting here with you, because you're a true authentic person, you know, in my world anyway. So I hope people get something, what you're trying to put forward here. I'm just so grateful that you've asked me to sit here with you and be sort of someone that's backwards and forwards here.
Where it's I feel like I'm learning a lot from you too, so it's hopefully a two-way street. And so as Julie said, I hope this is sort of given some insight in some way to you, if you're listening. And I think, you know, we're it feels like we've dived into a few things. That also feels like we'll be back for more, and
hopefully,
and we'll be opening up some other topics in the near future, and also, you know, I really love the topics that you've presented today, Jules, about vision, connection, receptivity, creativity. Like they're all very juicy, so I'm sure we'll be back into
embodies what you do and how you are
exploring that further. So yeah, just as we wrap things up, is there anything else that's that you feel you want to share? Or?
No, I feel it's just, I find it fascinating listening to you, because I just see the way you explain things. I'm just always listening and thinking, man, I've read a lot of books, but you're living proof of how to do it, and the way you explain it. So,
well, I'm really, really stoked that we've connected and that we're in this creative place, and with music, and also, as you mentioned, the sound healings, the sound meditation journeys we're doing. And perhaps we'll share more about them in a future episode. But I can feel the wheels turning, and I can feel that things are building in our collaboration, and yeah, it's just been a lot of fun connecting, and I'm excited to see where we go, and I know it has been a tremendous support in and just I think having a safe space to like to have these deeper conversations, and to be able to really to really be able to express and clarify things, so that it makes life easier.
It's the old thing. It's not one hand clapping you. The receptivity is, you have to find people that are walking the walk. So I'm just grateful. Yeah, just grateful that you're there as well. So.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed our conversation out there, and Jules and myself will be back pretty soon. So yeah, thanks for stopping by and checking out our new podcast. I hope it's been useful to you in some way, and we look forward to catching up with you again soon. So till next time, everyone.
Good night.
Bye-bye.